was 82 years old. She had lived in the same house for 37 years, kept to herself, paid her dues, never bothered a soul. But the HOA didn't care. They didn't care about the memories, the age, the quiet strength of a woman who had outlived wars, recessions, and heartbreak. To them, she was just a yard with a few weeds. So, they fined her, harassed her, and eventually kicked her out. They didn't know who her grandson was. They didn't know he had spent 12 years becoming something powerful. They didn't know that the day they mocked her in front of the community, he was coming home, wearing a judge's robe. And when he walked into the meeting, everything changed. Her name was Eleanor Price. She wasn't flashy. She didn't gossip. She wore sun hats in the summer and knitted scarves in the winter. Everyone called her Miss Ellie. She planted tomatoes in her front yard, hung bird feeders on the porch, and every morning she swept her sidewalk, even if it didn't need it. But age was catching up. Her knees hurt, her back ached, and sometimes she just couldn't bend over to pull a weed or rake a few leaves. Just like that. It all started with a few weeds, 3 or maybe 4 right by the walkway, and then the letters began. The first one was pretty polite. Greater than we kindly remind you to maintain your front lawn in accordance with HOA standards. She really tried, but her arthritis made it hard, and her only son, her grandson's father, had passed away 2 years prior. She had no one nearby. Just her old garden gloves and some tools too heavy to lift anymore. So the second letter came, then a third, then the fines started. $50, $150, $300. She called. She wrote back. She even offered cookies to the board president, asking for more time. They didn't care. The HOA president was Claire Hensley, mid-50s blazer in every season, always holding a clipboard. Claire believed in rules, but only when they benefited her. She had gotten away with repainting her shutters without approval, but fined others for wind chimes. She told the board, "Greater than we must maintain standards. If we let one house fall, the rest will follow." That was her justification when they filed a lien on Eleanor's house. That's right, they put a legal claim on her property over a few fines and a handful of weeds. They gave her 30 days to vacate, unless the balance, now over $2,000, was paid. Eleanor tried to explain, tried to tell them her Social Security check wasn't enough, tried to offer payment plans. They said no. So on a Thursday morning, a truck arrived, a man knocked, and an 82-year-old woman stood quietly as her things were packed up. Neighbors watched. Some cried. Others filmed. Claire stood on the porch, arms crossed, satisfied. Eleanor left with a small suitcase and her cat. She moved into a friend's basement. But she made one phone call that night, to a number she hadn't used in over a year. "Mason, baby, it's Grandma." Her voice cracked. He hadn't heard it in months. Not since he moved across the country, but she didn't ask for money, didn't beg. She just said, "Greater than they made me leave." I didn't know who else to call. He listened, sat in silence. Then he said, "Greater than I'm coming home." What Eleanor didn't know was that Mason wasn't just successful. He was a Superior Court judge, one of the youngest ever appointed in the state, and he never forgot who raised him. He arrived on a Sunday, not in a limo, not with cameras, just a dark sedan, a briefcase, and a judge's robe folded in the back seat. He didn't call the news, he called the city clerk, the county records office, a real estate lawyer, and a private investigator. Then he requested to speak at the next HOA meeting. As a concerned relative of a resident, they didn't recognize his name. The meeting room was full. Claire stood up, smug as ever. Mason sat in the back, quiet, until his name was called. He walked up to the microphone and unzipped the garment bag he had brought with him. Out came a black robe. Gasps echoed through the room. Claire turned pale. "My name is Judge Mason Price. You kicked my grandmother, Eleanor Price, out based on what I see as an unfair use of community rules, elder discrimination, and targeted harassment." He laid out evidence. Photos showing selective enforcement emails proving Claire had skipped protocol, a recorded conversation where a board member called Eleanor deadweight, and finally, he held up a letter. A legal notice that the HOA was being sued for emotional distress, discrimination, unlawful lien practices, and elder abuse. The board scrambled. Claire resigned within the week. Eleanor's home returned to her. All fines gone. Lien lifted. But Mason didn't stop there. He pushed through a new rule in their county. No HOA can threaten eviction or place liens on elderly residents without third-party mediation and a medical review. Eleanor, she moved back home, and every morning now she still sweeps the sidewalk. But the weeds, she lets a few grow. Just as a reminder, some people see an old woman and think, easy target. But behind every wrinkle, there's a story, and behind some of them, there's a lion. They kicked her out for weeds, but they never saw what she was rooted to: family, justice, and a grandson who wears a robe, not for fashion, but for power. Never underestimate quiet strength, because sometimes the one you push out is related to the person who can shut you down.